Well, I know a lot more people need to hop on, but I'm not going to wait because it's 1:32 and we need to get started. Um, I'm excited about today's Friday 25. I want to talk about, you know, the the big topic at GC right now is customer service and wanting to reduce churn and get things turned around for our clients, for our residents. And I want to talk about a core value that I think relates to that and really dive into it. But before we get started, for uh, core values, Alejandra, tell us what the GC core values are.
So the core values are responsive, own it, whatever it takes, and better results.
Awesome. So just to let you guys know, it's going to be Own It that I want to talk about today. But before that, Shania, what's the GC Realty experience?
Sure. It's the right customer solutions, ease of doing business, and remarkable customer service.
Good. We definitely want to have the right solution the first time. When it comes to customer service, I've been thinking a lot and talking to my team about the Own It core value. And I think with customer service, a lot of times we get outreach, whether it's on the phone or in a text or in an email from a customer, and they need our help. They need an answer to our question. They want us to look into something, and they're relying on us to come through and provide great customer service. So I wanted to talk to you guys about this idea that we have at GC. There was an email in the past from Cliff, our CEO, and he talked about this idea of one in the box. And the explanation was that, when there's somebody responsible for something at GC, there should never be more than one name in the box, where the idea is it's very clear who's responsible for the activity. And if there's ever more than one name in the box, it creates confusion about who's responsible. So you would never want to have confusion around somebody that's going to solve a problem for a customer, whether it's a resident or a client. So I wanted to talk to you guys about how we do this. I see a lot of you on this call that have responsibilities. So Kylie is someone who has a big responsibility when it comes to emails, and she works on a client services team where she's on a call queue. So Kylie, when you think about this idea of one in the box and how it relates to emails, calls, text messages, how do you feel like we do this at GC where one person truly owns the issue?
I feel like it just comes down to, if you get that communication, just see it through. And it might not be something for you. Maybe, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. My computer's hooked up differently because I'm at Anne's desk, so I was worried. I just feel like it's really important to see it through. If I get a call for an owner and they're asking about XYZ, and I know I need to follow up with other people and other departments, and I'm not just gonna let that drop because somebody else isn't getting back to me. I think it's really important to remember that you do need to rely on other people to do some aspects of your job, but at the end of the day, if somebody comes with you to a concern, it's not up to Justin and maintenance to make this client happy. It's up to me. I need to get the answers on things. So just seeing something through from start to finish, I think is really important, even when it's, some aspects of it are out of your hands.
For sure. And what kind of roles do you work with when it comes to, customer service and providing the GC Realty experience? If you have an email or you have a phone call where you have to get back to somebody, where you can't have that first call resolution, whether it's an email or a call, what are the rules around expectations? How long do you wait? What's good? Is it 24 hours or what's our expectation?
Yeah. So say I get an email in the morning and it's a leasing question. I'm not really involved in the day-to-day for leasing. I'll get back to the person and say, hey, let me check with our leasing manager. Let me get the answers for you. And I'll get back to you before the end of the day. And then I just make sure that I have those answers, and I do that. Sorry, someone just came in the office. 1 second.
Okay. Well, Kylie's handling some customer service right now at the front desk. But I think what Kylie was talking about is, when we have things that we're responsible for, like an email, there's a general expectation about GC of the timeliness for getting back to somebody and solving a problem. Kylie, we kind of cut off there, but I wanted you to talk a little bit about, is it 2 hours? Is that kind of what you're working with at a minimum?
I think, yeah, you should be able to get back to somebody within 2 hours. If you can't get back to somebody in 2 hours, just let them know, like, hey, I'm looking into this. I'm getting you the answers, because a lot of the times, like, the 2 hour window, it just isn't realistic sometimes. Like, we have L10s that are like an hour and a half. If you need something from your manager, like, there is just sometimes where that's the reality of our day to day. But keeping that person updated throughout that process so they know they're not just waiting half the day for an answer, like, that's really important. And I think it goes a long way. Even if they don't respond to your email saying you'll get back to them, I think that people and our clients and residents really just appreciate being kept in the loop on these things.
Okay, thank you.
Totally agree. I think on the phone call side, Kenya, I wanted to ask you about, taking inbound calls and being on the call queue. When we talk about this idea of first call resolution, what does that mean to you about, you getting a call and we want to have first call resolution? You're muted. I think you're muted, Kenya.
I think she might be on a call.
Oh, sorry. Samuel, you want to help us out with that one? Maybe Samuel's on a call too? It's hard to tell.
Well,
Eduardo,
I would like to add
you look
some.
like you're ready.
Who? Me?
Eduardo.
Oh. No,
I'm not in a call, so no, absolutely. So the idea of first contact resolution is it means that on the client's side of things, they only have to reach to us once, but on our end, we also only have to take care of the situation once. It sometimes can be difficult because the nature of our work spans across different areas, and also, for example, we might not have the solution right now, or we are working on it. And that's also where the idea of getting back to clients within a 2-hour time frame, just letting them know that we're working on it, it comes into consideration, into play. But ideally, if it is something that we can solve within the first time, we should absolutely strive to do so. Maybe sometimes it's just like getting some information from them, or in my case, it's like, yeah, I have this question regarding my statement or something delinquency, and that's when you provide the solution the first time, and the client is happy that you are being proactive, and we are able to take care of that issue and then move on to the next.
Really good. I'm curious because I want to talk a little bit about, Eduardo, some of the work that you've done before. Like right now, you're on the client services team, but you've also worked with clients before during onboarding. And I want to talk about that here in a minute. But I guess to kind of like preface that, Kyle Hanley, when you think about the service that a client gets at GC, is it the same? Is it the same from day 1 to day 300? Is it pretty much the same communication with like email, call, text?
Yeah, I guess to just speak on that part of it, there's a whole concept of these 14 points that we manage to, there's communications, PM life cycle of a property, and the management between maintenance and renewals, leasing, all that kind of stuff. So clients expect to kind of know what's going on. You know, they hired us for a reason. They don't want to be the ones dealing with this stuff because it is, you know, it's an intensive job. Look at how many people are in this meeting right now that manage everything. You know, it's a difficult job to do, and they require us to help them through all that. We're the experts when it comes to this stuff. So when it comes to the communication, they just usually want to know what's going on. They just don't want to be surprised about things. So the idea is, you know, we have a guideline for being responsive within 2 hours, whether it be an email. Kylie mentioned it earlier, just getting back to people the same day so that they know we're working on this stuff. And, you know, this is their asset. And we're trying to take care of it for them.
So I think that there are transitions though that a client experiences. You know, if they're working with the onboarding team and the client services team, you know, it's not always the same people. And I think that there's also transitions with escalations where someone may talk to a manager, or they may ask to speak with a manager. They may ask to speak to the director. But when it comes to the transitions with like onboarding, Shay, can you kind of talk a little bit about how do we explain to a client that, like, you know, you're having this communication with onboarding, but then you're kind of transitioning to a different group of people? I'm assuming Shay is serious.
Yeah, he says he's on a call.
So, Kyle, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I think we had a really interesting email recently that we sent to clients that we worked together on kind of like editing the message to them. Like, how did we explain that about how, you know, you've been working with maybe Mark or Shay, but you know, you're going to be with a different team now, and, you know, talk about how that works. Kyle.
Sorry, I cut out there for a second. What was the question?
I was talking about how somebody transitions from onboarding to the client services team and how it's a different group of people. How do we explain that, and how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think when it comes from onboarding, you know, you're trying to get the information about the property, get to know it a little bit. You're working with the client to just understand what are their needs for the property. And then when you come over to our team, you know, there's a whole group of people here that help facilitate all that stuff the day to day. So, you know, having that connection with them, you know, Kylie, Eduardo, myself, and some other people that are involved with all that stuff, you know, we're trying to keep the clients up to date on the day-to-day stuff, whereas onboarding is trying to get you up and running, whether maybe your property's coming to us vacant. And, you know, they're trying to get the property rented out and explaining that maybe there's some work that needs to be done. So there's different things at different stages within, you know, property life cycle, that from onboarding, getting us ready, and then, you know, us keeping it going and that trend, and at the end of the day, making them money. That's what they're in this for.
And then as far as, you know, escalations, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Enrique, talk to me about an escalation, and how does that work if you're helping somebody but you need help from the manager? Like, who owns it at that point, and how does that transition work at GC?
Way that escalation becomes a high risk, we enter a high risk so that we can follow up on a daily basis. We assign that high risk to the person that would be responsible, the person who has the answers, or the person who can be on top of it. It could be one of us, it could be Samuel, it could be a property manager. But we just make sure that we have updates every day in order to close out the escalation.
Okay. So sometimes it'll be a high risk issue that's escalated. And then Shania, what might be a different type of escalation that's not high risk, where maybe there needs to be assistance from a manager to answer a question?
Sorry, I'm actually getting a call.
Enrique, you want to try to tackle that one?
Hello?
Yeah, so if you don't have the answer to somebody's question, and you're just not sure what to do, and you need help from your manager, how does that work?
Well, if I'm stuck on a call with a person who needs escalation, I just ask for search for help. I offer a call back. I apologize about the issues, and then we just escalate through the chats, or I just make a call, and then we just take it from there. it could be me calling back with a resolution. It could be any other team member.
So who owns it at that point?
Well, that'll be the person who takes the call, or whether it's a client, that'll be somebody from the CS team. Or if it's for resident, it could be any of our resident service team or the RSD operation manager.
Absolutely. And I think that you guys do a really good job of using our communication systems and chat. If you need to escalate something, asking for help, oftentimes there's somebody on the phone and said, you know, somebody called me from GC, but I'm not sure who it is, and we'll work together to find out who that would be. I think that we have a lot of different channels for escalations at GC where you're right, the person who owns it is the person who's taking the call or the email, and we need to make sure that that gets to the finish line. I think that you know, customer service and email, phone call, and text messages is a kind of a major part, you know, of how we communicate with our clients and provide the GC Realty experience. But then also around the just kind of like one in the box and own it piece, there's the operational piece, which is working through processes, working with each other. And, you know, I think that like for renewals, collections, there's a lot of communication between Alejandro and Samuel and Shania and Samuel. So Alejandro, how does it work with like this idea of one in the box when it comes to renewals? Like how do we do that at GC where, you know, there's somebody who owns something and they're responsible and they need to kind of like get things to the next step? How does that communication work?
Yeah, so at least for renewals, I am the one that's in charge of most of the process, specifically getting in contact with the owners, or at least the first two attempts, getting in contact with the tenants for them to confirm the renewal and getting in contact with them for them to actually complete the renewal. So basically how it works, if someone has a question about maybe a clause on the lease or something they don't understand, you would get in contact with one person, and that would just make it a lot easier because you don't have to guess on if there was two people, who do I need to get in contact to? Maybe you tag both of them when you only needed to tag one, and then if that continues, it may clutter your email inbox. But it just makes the process a lot smoother, and it also gives the tenants a point of contact. I've had a lot of people who just called looking specifically for me. Sometimes they don't say why they want to call, they just want to call looking to speak to me. So it just makes it easier for them to say, okay, I needed to deal with this person, I don't want to speak to you because I have dealt with this person, even though the person may have assisted them, but it just makes it easier for the tenants as well.
Okay. So how many different departments do you interact with your role?
That would be leasing for the rent review. That would be the client services team, the client resolutions team, in case an owner has a question about something that doesn't have to do with the renewal. The resident services team, in case someone needs to get in contact maybe for a payment that needs to be taken care of before that occurs. I now need to get in contact with Mark for him to sign the leases. And yeah, I mean, I deal with a lot of people.
So how can you own it when it comes to the work that you're doing if you're relying on other departments?
By following up with them, even though that I'm escalating something, I am still the one that's dealing with the renewal, and I'm still the one that has to push the ball forward, the process forward. So even if I escalate something to Samuel, I am still in charge of following up with Samuel and asking if he has some sort of updates in case he or someone else has not provided me with an update.
That's excellent. So there's a lot of moving parts, but at the same time, you are responsible for the final outcome.
Correct.
I guess thinking about like a different area of focus at GC, Rodland, and working with inspections, I think everybody on the team has seen this overwhelming positive force in the browse channel about inspections. Like our inspections pass rate is better than I've ever seen it. I think that the techs are just doing super. The maintenance team's doing super. Just everybody's working together for these inspections outcomes. But for you, like what different departments do you need to be responsive to you in order for you to win each day?
First and foremost, the maintenance team, because I would need updates on the work orders, and then also following up with the CST for the approvals of these work orders if it's getting stuck, and also knowing as well the deadlines for all the inspections. So I also get to communicate with the external, not only with GC, but external, like the cities and subsidies.
For sure. I think that, you know, the success that we're seeing in inspections is a great example of teamwork. But at the same time, there's that own it piece, because ultimately, you know, we're responsible for seeing things through to make sure that we pass. I think currently you're managing some high risk issues where you've literally made sure the work is done with other teams. You've QC'd it by looking at the photos. You have the next date. I think a big one we have coming up is the 24th. And you've already said, I've reviewed everything, we've done all the work, and we're going to pass. Like that's just so wonderful when you do that. And I think it really shows that own it aspect of your role. And then the outcome is then you can pass that message, and, you know, the client services team can let the client know that everything's resolved and taken care of, and the tenant's happy because GC's taking care of things. And, you know, I think you and Alejandra both have given examples where a lot of different people are working together to get an outcome, but ultimately kind of one person owns it, even though they're working with other departments. Kylie had mentioned something to me earlier that I wanted to share with the team to kind of close the meeting. And it was, she shared an example of sometimes there are multiple people from GC working on something or communicating in Podio, but we're kind of not getting the desired result. Kylie, do you want to share kind of just maybe just a general or high level overview of something like that you've seen happen before?
Yeah, I think specifically, like when I was Kyle's APM, I knew I had to keep track of these 300 residents and all of their concerns. Like if somebody wasn't happy at the end of the day, it was solely on me or on Natalia or on, you know, all of the APMs that worked with these tenants. And I feel like sometimes with the way that our structure is now, a tenant can call in to one person, and then 20 minutes later, they're like, oh, you know, I feel like calling in again, and then they'll speak to somebody else. So, and then maybe people in RST, maybe they don't even know that this tenant's reaching out a couple different times, or like maybe somebody, you know, had sent them an email. So they could get all of these different concerns from, you know, the same people at different points. And it's just really comes down to seeing everything through from start to finish, like I said earlier. Because I know that sometimes if somebody calls in and they have a question about like their move out, like maybe that's not your specific job to deal with, but at the end of the day, that person is taking time out of their day to call us and talk to you about what's going on. So we just really need to make sure that, you know, even if it's not your department or, you know, something that's going on or like not your position, I guess, just making sure it's passed the right hands or you're seeing it through. Like it's the first time resolution. I feel like there can be a lot of confusion because there's so many different people, you know, in a call queue and an email queue. Like, so I mean, we're all human. We make human mistakes, and it's, you know, not a big deal at the end of the day. But just really making sure if you can solve that person's concerns right then and there, and it's possible for you, I think that's just, it makes a world of difference for like our tenants and our owners.
Absolutely. I think with your example, you know, sometimes there are things that we learn at GC that maybe we can do better on, or we can improve our processes. I think whenever you're newer at a newer in a position or new to a company, it's really vital that you provide feedback on what you see. And, you know, a lot of times we can find ways to do things better. We can find ways to do things better with technology. We can find ways to do things better with our processes. And Lauren, when you see an issue, like maybe there's a lot of people communicating and in Podio around an activity, but not solving it, and there's just kind of like a lot of hands in there, what do you think would be a good idea when you think about how our company operates and the type of meetings that we have and how we solve problems? What might be a good thing to do with something like that?
I think when you see it happen all the time, when like multiple people are tagged, and then it kind of creates confusion as to who actually needs to do something to get it resolved, or, because people think, oh, like if 3 people are tagged on it, someone else is doing it. But I think we can apply the same like rule of thumb, like one name in the box for tags as well. So if you're tagging someone to get something done or asking for help, make it very clear as to who you're directing your comment to, so they know that they need to respond to it or they need to take action on it. And then if it's unclear, just ask, like if you don't know if you're responsible for getting something done or someone else is handling it. I think if you're tagged anywhere and you are even remotely uncertain as to what you need to do, act like you are the one owning it, and just ask to make sure it gets done and have like the ownership of that tag.
Yeah, I think that these are really good examples of things that could be escalated to a manager to say, hey, this happened, or I see this issue, I have to figure it out. And then sometimes it might go on an issues list for an L10, because those are things that we can discuss and try to find a better way to do it. And I think that, at GC, one of the things that's just super impressive about the company and the team is that I think that all of you guys do really, really well with that. When it comes to like problem solving, we need to be able to say, hey, we need to get this solved. This isn't working right now. There's a lot of people trying to solve it at once. So I think sometimes like that, things like that do end up on an issues list for an L10 where, we want to try to figure out how to do it better. And sometimes that can be worked out with each other, with a manager, but sometimes it requires a bigger discussion. But ultimately, these are the things that result in better customer service, and we can kind of figure out that own it piece with who's the one in the box here. What do we need to do differently? So I think it's a really good subject to talk about, because with this own it piece for customer service, we started off and it was very much about communication, emails, text, phone calls. But then there's also the operational piece of working with each other, and it just all kind of works together where there's a lot that goes into customer service behind the scenes, more than just the Q&A. So does anybody else have anything they add? We're over time, so I want to make sure that we can conclude. I know that today was a very unique meeting where a lot of people had phone calls, so I apologize for that. And
I do have a recommendation, Andy. There is, in the Better Book Club, we have a book called Never Lose a Client or I don't remember if it's client or customer again. It's 100 points, that book, so you will get 100 bucks Amazon gift card. But that book mainly talk about the process of when you get a client. In this case, it could be a client or a tenant, and how important the first 100 days are for this person. Probably after the day 100, you might forget about them, but you are still like having a little bit of contact with them. In some cases, why tenants get mad? Just because of lack of communication, because they don't feel that we understand their issues, or they think that we only care about their money. Well, clearly we do, but that's why some bad reviews reach Google reviews. That's why we might lose some clients, only because we didn't notify him that there's some repairs that need to be done, and we do them without letting them know that there's going to be some expenses that will be beneficial for their property, because it's easier and cheaper to maintain something rather than fix something that is completely broken down.
Yep. Well said, Javier. Does anybody else have any thoughts before we close out? All right. Well, thank you guys. I think that this was a really good discussion, and I want to encourage everybody that if they ever see something that they feel like is not working, or we can improve a process, or that we need to help our customer and get something solved, please say something. And we're working very hard to try and improve customer service and really celebrate those wins in the browse. So I just want to tell you personally that it's been so fun to come to work and see what you guys are putting in there and see these wins. It's really awesome, and I just hope that we can keep the ball rolling and the momentum on that. I hope everybody has an awesome weekend. Thanks, everybody.
You too, Andy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.